Markets Now is brought to you by the 5-year anniversary of Brevant Seeds. Here's to 5 years of not just winning, but collecting one game-changing W after another. See all of our wins at brevant.com/wins.
And welcome to Markets Now. I'm Michelle Rook with Brad Kooima Varilek. Seeing a lot of green on the board and green in the livestock futures trade this morning. And Brad, it's good to see in the cattle futures, especially after that wicked down day we had last Thursday. But it's been sponsored by Record Cash Trade again, right? Last week.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Michelle. And it's fasten your seatbelts, wear a parachute. For you youngsters out there, this one's for the books. This is more volatility than I've seen in the 45 years I've done this. And when you're at price levels like this, the violence in the market, and maybe I'll just take a minute here to, Thursday. I'm not going to dwell on all the stories, supposedly the backstories of Thursday, but I mean, social media is not a helpful thing here in terms of sometimes the news feels a bit manufactured. It takes a little while for you to catch up. There was another story over the weekend, and markets are quick to, I suppose, overreact too. And that's another thing. Back when we had a pit, the pit would sort through the news, I think, a little bit, and have that human perspective of, oh, well, that doesn't make sense. I mean, that can't be right, type of things. Where now you get, which I still believe you have, what I call headline algorithms that do trade certain phrases and certain words that go together, and then that's part of the market. But so anyway, Thursday was interesting to say the least. Friday, we came back on the same story that you and I have said over and over and over and over, and that is cash is king. And with one packer particularly coming out there and paying higher money in areas of the cattle belt on Friday, certainly cranked that front end of that market right back up. And discounted structure like we are, it's a little easier maybe to influence the futures that way. In terms of what I'm talking about is when the cash is this much higher than futures, obviously the futures should be drug higher here a little bit now that we're under delivery, especially.
Right. Can you kind of just recap how high cash was? What did we see?
Well, right here, 245 bought a lot of cattle, and I'd say that was probably about it for this area. The South, a big range again in the South, where some cattle early in the week traded down in the low 30s, and then at 35, 6, 7, 8, there was a handful of cattle that traded to move exported to the north at 240-ish, and not very many. Probably the high point of the whole deal came Friday in western Nebraska at 247. So again, wide range of markets. North generally higher than the South, but new record highs here again, and very impressive.
Absolutely. And that really trumped the sell-off that we saw in the stock market. So we closed higher on Friday in the futures market. We have a big discount structure. Will that help us push back into those contract highs and negate the reversals from last week?
Well, I think, yeah. I don't know. I everybody likes me more when I'm way bowled up, like I basically have been for a long time here. But I guess I feel less that way than I have in a while. And some of it is because I feel like inevitably, I can't see how the commercial packer side of this thing is going to stand for this a lot longer. Margins went from being rotten to being really bad, and I'm trust me, I'm not setting up a GoFundMe account for the packer. I think everybody that knows me knows how I feel about, it's our turn. It's our turn for a slice, right?
Right. But we have had kill cuts announced as a result of this, right?
100%. I think there's going to be a lot of kill cuts this week. Excuses for cooler cleanouts, repairs. I think you're going to hear a lot of 32-hour weeks in some of these places. So, again, we get to something that you and I have talked about, is are we killing the available supply or are we not? And I guess I don't think we are, but is that bearish today? Probably not. But at some point when you do back up supply, it does make a difference. So again, in my neck of the woods, we are very current. I don't see any of these big 1,700-pound cattle that you do sometimes this time of year, these long-fed calves. We can't wait to sell them. They make lots of money. So the problem is going to come from a different spot, and that's probably the south. And you can see the average weights are still well over a year ago. And when you look at the regional weights, they're way, way, way over a year ago in Texas and Kansas, not as much in Iowa. So I don't know, it's something we got to talk about. Now, you mentioned the stock market, so, people say, well, what are you worried about? I say, well, kill cuts and then, some kind of an economic situation. So happy to see stock market sharply higher today. We seem to be, breathing a little easier. But again, there's some stuff here in the marketplace that I think, guys, okay, stay bullish, but buy puts. I mean, if I could be more blunt, I don't know how else to be more blunt. Let's not give it back.
Yeah, because there's a lot of market vulnerability here, isn't there?
$20 break. I mean, that'd be less than a 10% correction in the price. I mean, it used to be we'd get a 12 to 15% break every summer. So, I mean, it's, can it? Sure. Will it? I don't know when, but it will. But, I'm not saying it'll happen today, but I'm just throwing that out there. Be careful, guys. Market feels really good this morning, but don't be dumb.
Yeah, no doubt. And the funds have liquidated a little bit there. They've liquidated a little bit over in the hog market. They seem to be somewhat tied together. I mean, hogs have gotten spillover strength in the cattle market. So where do you see hogs going here? Because numbers are actually pretty tight there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think somewhat, again, the disease influenced, at least in our neck of the woods, we've been struggling here with feeder pig prices here for a while due to some health problems again. It seems like the hogs always have those cycles of disease problems creating some tighter supply. So definitely, you're right, especially when you're sourcing pigs out of generally the north and even places further north than where I'm sitting here in Iowa. We haven't talked about cattle hog ratios for a while, and I guess we shouldn't because it doesn't seem like they have much to do with each other. But whoa, this thing is crazy now with what the record has been for. So part of me is like, how far can you really break hogs, especially this time of year when you kind of switch features here from steak cuts to hamburger hot dog type sort of thing. So I don't know. There's a deal where we need to have a little more confidence that we're going to be able to continue to do business with some of our trade partners, i.e. China, but the market seems to hold breaks here pretty good. I feel like cash has been struggling here for a couple of days, but I don't think we're overwhelmed with supply. So I guess if you put a gun to my head, I'd probably rather sell them than buy them, but that's about as close as you have to be to make me want to trade them.
Gotcha. Little bounce in the grains this morning, but it's been an ugly month. July was, and it was an ugly week last week. Do you think that you can even hold a bounce here, considering weather's still favorable? There's still talk about record yields, and we're not trading tariffs today, but that trade stuff is in the mix.
You said it pretty well. I know the grain guys out there would like me to give them something to hang on to here, and I can try, but I know you shouldn't be influenced by your own windshield. I have been doing I was on vacation last week, and in the last 2 weeks, I've traveled a pretty good chunk of the Corn Belt, at least the Western Corn Belt. And yes, there's been a little bit of wind damage right where I sit here. We had, in fact, a gal that worked for me 44 years lost the roof of her house. How's that for wind? Anyway, the problem here is that we got to figure out how big this crop is, and it's big, before you can maybe settle in and say, okay, now let me know that that's in the market, that whatever that record yield's going to be probably on the corn, and now we can try to rebuild, look for cheap prices, improve demand, yada yada. I get all that, but usually a big crop will make an early low.
Yeah.
So let's go with an August low. I'm afraid it's lower than where we are now, but not severely. But could I see December corn trading at 385 to 390 for 5 minutes? I sure could. Bean market to me is a little vulnerable too for another maybe quick 30-40 cent dip. It doesn't have to for me, but that's how it looks to me, like chart wise and timing wise. And then if we could just get a little help here from some export news or something, maybe then we can try to carve out a bottom. It's gonna be hard work, guys, but let's hope for an early low and get some demand-driven kind of improvement. But it's going to be hard work for a minute here, I'm afraid, Michelle.
Right. A China deal would certainly help, wouldn't it?
100%. Absolutely. That'd be a great start.
All right. Thanks as always. Brad Kooima with Kooima Varilek. That is Markets Now.
When you choose Brevant Seeds, you don't just win. You win so big, The very ground beneath your feet cries tears of joy. You went so big that second place feels like a participation trophy. You went so big, you might as well be harvesting buried treasure. Oh, sorry, just one more. When you choose Brevant Seeds, you don't just win. You hit the damn jackpot. Don't just win. Talk with your retailer or visit Brevant.com/jackpot to get started.